We're double booked tomorrow night. Sarah is expecting us.
That's right.
And I thought we had told her that we can't come.
I think
That we're nursing home. Yes.
there it is. Yep. USB camera live. Why is it?
Mike,
I'm guessing so. You're not sitting here now, are you?
nope, I'm over there.
So I figured you jumped ship.
There.
Me and Joe sure.
Did you get,
When do you want that stuff in?
Oh, I'm like you say, if you plug it in now, like I'll just.
You told me to put it on at 10 to 7.
I'm in a quarter to like so it's ready by 20 after.
It's way past 20 after 7.
I'm at 8, so it'd be ready by 10 if I said.
That's right. Well, it's.
We'll have it right at the start. It'll be okay. It'll be okay.
We'll see.
Sorry, like I meant,
Welcome to
okay,
Leader
so
Alliance.
when I start, it'll be ready about halfway through.
we have that little trail down.
Stop taking me out my word.
Yeah, yeah.
Do what I mean, not what I say.
There you go.
You had said you kind of had, time or something.
I thought you could, after all these years, you could read my mind, but.
Sometimes I can.
Yeah, that's true. I think the other one's better.
It is the other way, yeah.
Yeah.
Was the trailer not gonna work for the truck?
It's an issue now. Yeah. 79 and 90 days, like 80 is right on the scuff of the cover.
10 pounds. Wow. Yeah,
Yep. There.
No, too much.
Is too much? Is too much. Is enough? Is too much. All right, everybody, welcome. Grab your coffee. Grab your the snack that is already been ready, but and make sure you take a dozen eggs home with you or something. I'm not sure what's going on. Hard to believe. We have only 2 weeks left of this study. We've been going since September, so I think that gives us about a dozen. September, October, November. Yeah, that's quite a few. So we've also done quite a few of the minor holidays. Had we only done the major ones, it would have been much shorter. But so we picked on some of the minor ones as well. In addition, we've been looking in particular at more of an Orthodox perspective and trying to find that balance a bit with a less Orthodox or Reformed perspective, just like kind of representing Christianity from a conservative Mennonite perspective would be misrepresent the whole of Christianity. And obviously we haven't represented the whole of Judaism either. So there's a line we're kind of straddling down the middle. And again, my great concern is to misrepresent something, and that's not what I want to do in any way or disrespect something. So I've been using a little more video to help us get, that's a very cute baby, to get it from a balanced perspective. So, all right, so 2 holidays left. Today, fasting, sorrow, misery, death, and war. Yay!
And food.
Right up Shane's alley. Next time, Passover, the gift of God through the grace of the blood of the Lamb. So we move between the 2 last ones. Now, traditionally, this one is a fast. Holiday, but we're going to have some food because this holiday you're not allowed to eat meat of any kind. So Donna has prepared something different for us. You want to just explain it?
Well, the site I went on, they gave a recipe for basically like an egg and cheese dish and vegetable. So
Yeah.
just no bread, no meat.
Yeah, because you're not supposed to feel happy during this holiday. And this is
I'd be happy eating it tonight.
you may be like, what is this? I do know that when we're all done, we're all going to make challah bread from now on because it is amazing.
Sad scrambled egg.
Challah bread and butter and honey butter is the new order of the day. So.
Yes.
So what we're going to do is I want to show you a couple of videos, but before we start, I want to ask you, most holidays are about remembering. So what do we remember?
What God has done.
What God has done, absolutely. Or we know Remembrance Day, we remember what others have done. Holidays a lot of times are a reflection of remembrance. Is there or are there holidays that cause you, that its purpose is to ask a question, to force us to question something?
Ask that again, sorry. I missed that.
Are there holidays that in the process of remembering, it forces us to ask a question?
Easter.
Easter, good. Yeah, in remembering, we ask ourselves, that's really good, Harlan. Yeah, excellent. Like I know our birthdays, we all go, oh, I can't believe I'm this old, and what's the future going to hold? And that may be a valid one. Any other holidays you can think of that engage us and make us ask a question?
Well, New Year's to a certain extent. You say, what am I going to do better this year?
Yeah, that's right. New Year's is looking forward. Yeah, good, excellent. Okay. Well, this holiday is the remembrance of the destruction of the temples, and it forces the theological question within the Jewish community of, is God good? In light of tens and hundreds of thousands of deaths, and how people went into captivity, the ruin of all, the Babylonians and the Romans, and it's a reflection on, is God good? And so that's the question we're going to look at the end about this issue of how destructive and demoralizing and all these horrible things, war and death, and that, do they cause us to question the goodness of God? And is God good in light of all this suffering? So, Donna, we've got some snacks. I'm going to throw a couple of videos up there for us to kind of explain this holiday, and we'll eat while we watch those videos. So let's do the food right away while it's still hot.
I just,
Okay, so I'll put the videos up. You can go help yourself while Donna does that.
It's coming. Yeah.
All right. Off to our friends at Bim Bam. Of course, the first time you load it is...
You know, I got myself a webcam for my computer, and I'm just dying to have a Zoom call with somebody.
Oh, well, we could do a Zoom call.
Have a coffee date over Zoom.
Yeah, over Zoom.
You got your coffee? I got my coffee.
My coffee's good as your coffee.
Yeah, are you warm? I'm warm. How often does that go? Zoom to...
That's
I know.
weird, eh?
It's always the first time.
And the Wi-Fi is good. You just got to close it out and do it again.
Yeah, it's weird, eh?
Shelley, would you like one?
looks fabulous.
It's kind of like a quiche, but it's, yeah.
But sadder.
It's a sad quiche.
It smells. And then he wants, eventually wants some more. Dan, do you want some?
Sure, dear. Donna. Dear Donna.
Should be good for the Jolly Jumper. 2.5, 3 months, right? They usually.
Leanne will be sad. Oh,
How do you think this would go over at men's
come
breakfast?
next week. Okay. we're
You
doing
tell me.
2 representations of
Not
Castle.
bacon.
So not full on
No, that's
Castle,
true. There's no meat in it.
Small
Nick.
representation. She always wants to come.
No meat.
Nick would not be.
Oh, no. There would be some who would be... I'm not going to restart my device. It's just going to have to wait.
To represent the bitterness of being in captivity. Horseradish is bitter. Well, I
If
can
you're-
make
If
some
you're
of
a
that.
good Jew,
And then, these coconut macos.
What if you just click further down through it?
I know, I'm wondering if I can just jump into it, but it's, you see, it's there, but it doesn't want to play it back. Oh, wait, maybe he's here.
Wi-Fi has just been terrible.
I should preload this before study.
Well, but man, oh man, we've got good Wi-Fi.
I know, it's gotta be my computer's acting up.
Well, maybe it is.
I had to get away from the Wi-Fi and then
The
connect.
spinach is quite strong. It's from my garden.
Test.
Every major ancient holiday on the Jewish calendar, even Yom Kippur, is ultimately about joy, except for one, Tisha B'Av. On this day, the 9th of the Hebrew month of Av, it's said that a series of major tragedies to the Jewish people occurred, including the destruction of the first and second temples. It's a day of mourning for getting kicked out of the land of Israel, for the destruction of Jerusalem, and the medieval expulsions from various lands. It's said that Tisha B'Av is the day when it all went down, literally. Sacred sites, entire communities utterly destroyed, leaving a gaping hole in our collective soul. When life comes crashing down, we're left devastated. We cry, we mourn, we feel isolated. All natural responses to loss. Tisha B'Av is a day of mourning when the Jewish people acknowledge that no, life is not all butterflies and roses, and yes, this tribe has been through some serious suffering. The time prior to this day is known as the 3 weeks. The period starts with a fast on the 17th of Tammuz, when the siege of Jerusalem in 70 CE began, and intensifies during the last 9 days, when the walls were breached until the 9th of Av, when the ancient temple fell. The whole period is somber, and it's customary not to hold weddings during this time. Traditional Jews stop shaving, cutting their hair, and listening to music. During the 9 days, some also refrain from eating meat and drinking alcohol. The final day is Tisha.
Hang on, we're just gonna, because this, if I did, I really apologize, because then,
Who destroyed the walls?
what's that, Harlan?
Who destroyed the walls?
The Romans, but we'll get to that actually, but, that we'll get to as well, because they were, some bad things happened. So, because I have 3 weeks of mourning for the destruction of the temple.
That's it?
That's the 11th. When did we do this one? Oh, the 15th of Av, the greatest. Oh, yeah, it's tied to that.
Oh.
There we go. All right, we are in good stead.
Okay.
This will be just a refresher.
It's okay, it's good. Yeah.
Because we're going to get to the Romans and Harlan's
24-hour
questions tonight.
fast. In the evening, it's common to sit on low stools or the floor at synagogue and to hear the book of Echa, Lamentations, chanted by candlelight. The book, traditionally ascribed to Jeremiah, brings readers on a graphic journey of the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonians. Silent sit on the ground the elders of fair Zion. They have strewn dust on their heads and girded themselves with sackcloth. The maidens of Jerusalem have bowed their heads to the ground. My eyes are spent with tears, my heart is in tumult. My being melts away over the ruin of my poor people, as babes and sucklings languish in the squares of the city. The melodies of the day are like a dirge, a time of reflection as Lamentations concludes, Hashivenu Adonai, turn us to you, Holy One, and we will return. Renew us as before. Following the reading, it's customary not to greet each other and to leave in silence, honoring the lives lost in the sacred space of introspection. When a dark history seems to follow an entire people around, it's only natural to ask why, or how could this be? Sometimes these questions are real, and sometimes they're more like a lament. Why me? Why us? How could this have happened? Echa translates literally to how, as in, how could this be? Jewish thinkers have struggled to understand these questions for thousands of years. Historians see these as historical events where one nation overpowered another, but the rabbis understood them differently. In Hebrew, sinat chinam, baseless or useless hatred, was rampant throughout the land. The rabbinic tradition understood the loss of Jerusalem and the temple to be the divine consequence of the people's unethical behavior. That's why this day is also a time to consider improving our own words and actions in the world, especially how we treat others. Tisha B'Av comes in the midst of summer and yanks people out of that summertime and the living is easy feeling. The day invites Jews to turn inward and consider what it means to face national, spiritual, and individual darkness and loneliness. With a reflective heart, the next turn is outward, towards the light of life again, which renews a people's connection to God, to each other, and to the world. The spiritual turns of Tisha B'Av prepare the Jewish people for the biggest turn of the year, just 7 short weeks away, when the shofar calls our attention to Rosh Hashanah and the new year.
The 15th is the first day of the 3 weeks. That's why we've got the first one. I do want to show you another. So that's kind of a reformed view. Whoops, I could close all this now, because we don't need that. I want to give you more of a conservative view. And now it's working great.
Shavasar b'Tammuz, the fast of the 17th of the month of Tammuz. On this day, Moshe descended from Mount Sinai, and upon finding the Jews worshiping the golden calf, he broke the tablets of the law, the luchos, that God had given him. Also on this day, the Roman army that had laid siege to Jerusalem managed to breach the walls of the city, which led to the destruction of the Second Temple. Several other tragedies befell the Jewish nation on this day, and because of all these tragedies, the rabbis designated the 17th day of Tammuz as a day of mourning. All males above the age of bar mitzvah and all females above the age of bas mitzvah must refrain from eating and drinking from dawn until nightfall. Pregnant and nursing women should consult a rabbi. Washing oneself is permitted, but there are those who refrain from bathing or showering with hot water for pleasure. Slichos and Avinu Malkeinu are recited as well. Shivasar b'Tammuz also marks the beginning of the 3 weeks, the period of national mourning over the destruction of the temple, which culminates on Tisha B'Av. From Shivasar b'Tammuz until Rosh Chodesh Av, we do not take haircuts, shave, listen to music, or make weddings. It is also customary to avoid activities that contain an element of danger. Try to avoid making expensive purchases that bring a person excessive happiness during this time. Now, if you follow the Sephardic custom, taking a haircut and shaving are permitted until the week of Tisha B'Av. From Rosh Chodesh Av until midday, the day after Tisha B'Av, which is known as the 9 days, the mourning intensifies, bringing with it additional prohibitions. It is forbidden to eat meat and drink wine, except for Shabbos, and for a Sudas mitzvah, such as a bris milah or a siyum. It is also forbidden to launder and iron clothing, or even to wear freshly laundered clothing. Clothing that you intend to wear during this time should be tried on in advance for a certain period of time. It is permitted to wear clean clothes in honor of Shabbos. One may not shower or bathe unless absolutely necessary to remove the sweat from one's body. Showering in honor of Shabbos is permitted. Swimming is not permitted during the 9 days. For Sephardim, laundering, clothing, wearing fresh clothing, and bathing are only forbidden during the week of Tisha B'Av. It is customary to refrain from traveling during the 9 days unless absolutely necessary to avoid any dangerous situations. We pray to God that He rebuild the Holy Temple speedily in our days, and these laws will no longer apply.
So the first one was the last day of the holiday. This is all the stuff beforehand. Now I'm in sync. A little panic there. All right, we got it. So what jumped off the page there for you? What? All right.
The way you said is his ing.
Yeah.
Clothing.
Clothing and weir. You can't wear it.
He was like a Jew from Brooklyn.
Yeah, like a Brooklyn guy.
Yeah. So,
All right, this is starting on July 13th next year to August the 2nd is the longest period of mourning in Jewish tradition. This is called the 3 weeks between the 17th of Tammuz and Tish B'Av, which is on August 2nd. These are the days of misfortune and calamity. And this is the season recognizing the destruction of the temples, plus a series of other misfortunes that we'll look at and give you a little bit more detail to satisfy Harlan's questions, which are exactly what this addresses. It's rooted in Lamentations 1, verse 3, all her oppressors have overtaken her within the straits. And then later on, 3:1, where Judah has gone into exile out of affliction and enduring harsh servitude. She lives among the nations. She has not found a resting place. All those who pursued her have overtaken her in the midst of distress. So this is a 21-day, 3 weeks of mourning. So whatever is going on is quite serious, right? We often mourn for seasons, and I don't want to put a date stamp on things, but this is an intentional mourning for 3 weeks. We have Remembrance Day maybe one day where we reflect on grief, where this is actually a 3-week stretch. So the entire nation is commanded to minimize joy and have no celebration. Oh, by the way, yeah, there's a box of oranges we bought there, so help yourself.
It's interesting that they have to make themselves sad.
Yes.
It's different when you're mourning because you're truly sad.
Absolutely.
But they do this all the time and they have to become.
Yes, and you have to do those things that induce sadness, like no bait. We'll get some of the prohibitions in a bit, but yeah, you have to make yourself sad.
Yeah, because you're normally probably not that
Yeah.
sad.
So, as the rabbi had given us some of the prohibitions, I want to just kind of remind. So, first off, no weddings are allowed to be held during these 3 weeks. Although you can have, which is sad because it's July and August, right? It's like the prime wedding time. But engagements are permitted. You don't listen to any music, particularly live music, because music makes you happy. So you can't listen to the radio. You can't. No music.
Unless it's Jewish music.
Yeah. Well, that might not.
That doesn't make me happy.
We'll have to get the right one.
That confuses me.
So avoid any and all public celebrations, especially dancing. No dancing. Remember, for Jewish communities, dancing is all the time, like everything. No, not yet, right now, right? You can't do anything exciting or entertaining or trips or activities. So you can't go to the museum, or you can't go to the fair or the movies, anything. No hair cutting or shaving, although you may clip your fingernails until the week starts. No blessings upon food or clothes except on Shabbat. So all of this. So it begins with the first 9 days. The fast of the 17th of the Hebrew month is the beginning of this 3-week period. And it commemorates or remembers 5 key events. First off, what did Moses do when he came down the mountain when he saw the people worshiping the golden calf? Smashed the tablet. So it's mourning the destruction of the law because of the sin of the people. So that's the first one. Second one, it is when the Babylonians came and laid siege to Jerusalem, took everybody off into captivity for 70 years, and destroyed the temple. So those are the two probably the most familiar ones. But the other, then there's one more familiar one and 2 odd ones. The third one is when a fellow by the name of Apostamas burned the Torah. Now there's 2 opinions about who this guy was. He was either Greek or he was Roman. So one could have occurred when the Babylonians destroyed the temple, and one could have occurred when the Romans. There's controversy between the rabbis about this, but it's mourning the burning of the Torah, which is cause for grief. The fourth one is the fall of Jerusalem in 69 AD, and we're going to look at that in a little bit of detail. And then the fifth one is after Rome destroyed the temple, there was still an ongoing revolution. The Jews were still, cast out of Jerusalem, but they weren't done in Israel. And they kept rebelling against the Jews, and the Romans kept putting down these rebellions in very typical Roman style. And so there was a thing called the Bar Kokhba Revolt, and 500,000 Jews were killed by the Romans as a result of this. So this is when Quintus Tinnius, at the same time Rufus, plowed the temple site over. So he took the temple site and just turned it into a field. So this is the time of the end. Now, it's also been added since then a series, if you look on page 3. By the way, the notes are on Facebook if you're watching us online, so I did put them in PDF. A series of other. So without looking to the list, what other tragedies have the Jews faced? World War II and the Holocaust. Yeah. Remember that list we went through, all those little pogroms? Yeah. There was a lot there. There was a lot there. So it also recognizes the first Crusades. When the Crusades began, there was a very strong anti-Jewish sentiment within Europe. And as the armies for the Crusades during the First Crusade gathered, they went along, and as they went along, they killed Jews all the way to Israel. And they estimate that 10,000 Jews were killed in the first month in France and Rhineland alone. So they're off to save the Holy Land. Let's kill the Jews. So that, on July 18th, 1290, the Jews were expelled from England. Now, if you look beside, it says of 9 a.m. 550. Joyce, that's the year 550 from the beginning of rabbinical time. So that's what those other numbers meant. Av is the month, so the 9th of Av in the year 550, where we would say it's the year 1290. On July 22nd, 1306, the Jews were expelled from France. And on July 31st, 1492, they were expelled from Spain. So what else happened in 1492? Columbus sailed the ocean blue, yeah, so that's the time. So over the course of 200 years, from England, France, and Spain, they were expelled. Then Germany entered World War I on the 1st and 2nd of August of 1914, which caused massive upheavals to the Jewish population as anti-Semitism was beginning. Then, of course, August 2nd, 1941, when Himmler formally received approval for the final solution, and the depths of the Holocaust were really plumbed. A third of the world's Jewish population was murdered. It's hard to imagine. July 23rd, 1942, the mass deportation of the Jews from Warsaw Ghetto to Treblinka. And then in 1994, the AMIA bombing of the Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires killed 85. October 7th, 2023, Hamas led attack on Israel, which took the 120 into captivity. So this is a series of ongoing...
This is just the recent one.
Yeah, right down. So this is one that's being remembered. So do you have to make yourself sad? All you have to do is remember.
Right.
So this is what this is about. It is a season of mourning for the suffering of people. Now there are some practical prohibitions. You have to abstain from eating and drinking between dawn and nightfall. So after evening you can eat again.
Midnight snack.
Midnight snack, or in our case, 5 o'clock. So if you had to not eat between dawn and nightfall, that puts you what, 9 to 4, like where we live? Pregnant and nursing women may not have to fast. Someone who's ill may not have to fast. It is permitted to wake up early before the fast begins and eat, provided you've gone to sleep when had in mind to do so. There are special prayers during the week. The Torah is read. Some of the passages about the golden calf, the incidents of Isaiah, all that kind of stuff is read as well. So some of the prayers are changed. Early in this series, I had you read all the Amidas and all that. We're not going to go through that again because you're familiar with it somewhat. But that is read as well. There's some additional lamenting that goes on. And again, essentially what it really is a fast. It's a 3-week fast. This day where God is accessible, we wait to repent. And one of the sages said, every generation for which the temple is not built is a day it is as though the temple was destroyed for that generation. A fast day is not only a sad day, but an opportune day. It is the day when we are empowered to fix the cause of that destruction, so our long exile will be ended, and we will find ourselves living in messianic times. May that be very soon. So why are we fasting? So that we can repent of our sins, so that tragedy does not befall us again. So we want to keep fresh with God, always fasting, always repenting, for concern that some great tragedy might align us again.
Almost trying to prevent it, eh?
Yeah, that's right. And repentance prevents the wrath of God. So this is part of what's called the 9 days. And during the last 9 days, it gets even stricter. So for the first, it's 3 weeks. So 3 days, 21. So that's 11 or 12 days. Yeah, 11 days. And then in the last 9 days, now things ramp up. It's been tough, we're not. Now, you cannot purchase any item that brings you joy. So no more eBay, no more Amazon shopping.
You can just picture Henry hunting for geese decoys, but going, oh,
Can't do that, yeah.
I wish I enjoyed
Because
this.
we won't let them have insulated rooms.
Yeah, let's make him suffer.
It's just great joy.
Yeah, so anything that brings you great joy you can't buy.
I just
Like
pretend
some
like it
joy.
sucks.
I know, that's where you, when in doubt, consult your local rabbi. So no buying puppies. None of that, all that's banned. Okay, we suspend home improvements. Why?
Because it brings you joy.
Because that brings joy, right? You can't plant any trees that produce fruit or anything that produces flowers. Why? Good. You're right. Or good. You can't go to court with a Jew. You have to avoid any litigation with non-Jews. Why?
So that would bring you joy.
Because that would bring you joy. Exactly. Yes, since that would bring you joy. We abstain from the consumption of meat. That's why we had a meatless meal here, including poultry and wine, because they are symbolic of the temple service and were expressions of celebration of joy. Now on Shabbat, you can eat meat and wine. We refrain from wearing any newly laundered garments or laundering any clothes, because the freshness has to be taken out of the holiday. So fresh clothes may be worn on Shabbat. The clothing of small children, which gets soiled frequently, may be laundered. So you're okay, but only small children. Clothes may not be laundered, even done in preparation for the day if done by a non-Jew. You can't get your laundry done. So why? Because freshness, right? So we don't do anything that brings us joy, pleasure, freshness, vitality. We are now eating eggs, and then we'll see that, eggs dipped in ashes. That's part of the meal. We do not bathe for pleasure. It is permitted to bathe and to remove dirt or perspiration or for medical reasons, but only in cool water. So you can't bathe in warm water or shower. So if you go to the gym, you have to bathe in cold water, right? The body should be washed in parts rather than all at one time, so there's not a refreshing event from it. Bathing in warm water is permitted. You cannot buy, sew, weave, or knit new clothing. Christina can't do any crafting. Now, there's an exception to the rule. I love this, and I quoted the source. If you will miss a major sale, or if the garment will be unavailable later, if you say, look, if I don't, I'm going to miss the sale, then the rabbi says, oh, you can go because it's a big sale.
How Jewish.
I know, how Jewish.
It's almost like Mennonite.
Yeah, it's like, I can't miss this sale.
Change the law for a good deal.
That's right, exactly. So, anyhow, that's just an exception,
That's
obviously.
hilarious.
I don't know that one. So, think about your life. Okay, I want you to put all those prohibitions into effect in your life for the next 9 days. Just look at that list again, take a moment. What can you do? What will you be doing?
Feeling miserable.
Feeling miserable, okay. You're going to be wearing the same clothes you wore yesterday.
Smelling miserable.
Smelling miserable. What's that? Sitting around.
I suppose you can sleep.
You could sleep. You have to sit on low stools.
No work though, eh?
No work. Well, yeah, not on Shabbat, but you could work during the thing.
Oh, okay.
No TV, because TV brings you joy.
Unless you watch the news.
No music. You can't have your Christmas carols on or your summer music, so you have to turn your radio off, so your house is silent now.
No sewing, that might bring Joni joy.
No sewing, yeah. No crafting, no doing your hobbies, no drinking wine or eating meat,
No hot tub.
no hot tub.
What if your work is your hobbies?
What's that?
What if your work is your hobbies?
It's a tough line, because if they bring you joy, maybe you shouldn't do it, but
I could be
just do your work in a miserable fashion.
Henry makes that possible.
Fracking.
So, what do? Well, we try to moderate the sadness through participating in permissible celebrations. That is, the reading of the Torah. We can read Torah. And we can increase charity to reverse the baseless hatred that triggered the destructions. So you can do good. Yes, Harlan?
Do they still do this?
Some do. Yeah, not all. Yeah. So, also, here if you look at the bottom in the small print, these are the 5 prohibitions. Okay? No eating or drinking, no washing or bathing, no application of creams or oils, no wearing of leather shoes, and no marital relations. So everybody's abstaining and not wearing leather shoes, because leather shoes are comfortable.
No shoes.
No leather shoes. You can wear your Crocs.
Oh, gee.
Well, I'm good then.
Yeah. So, again, reading of the Book of Lamentations, and during the late afternoon prior to the last day, it is customary to eat a meal of bread and water and a hard-boiled egg dipped in ashes, symbolic of mourning and eating while seated on the ground. So, sitting on the ground, bread, water, and a hard-boiled egg dipped in ashes. What if...
fasted already all all the days.
But you can eat in the mornings. You just can't eat in the daylight hours.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
How would you like your ashes?
Yeah, but you think about it, this is your last meal before this whole thing breaks out, before this thing is over. Sundown marks the commitment where no eating or drinking is permitted till nightfall. Again, bathing, washing, with leather shoes, all that kind of stuff. Reading of the book of Lamentations, but also you read a series of laments, of lamenting poems. So what can you do? You can sit and read sad poetry.
Make himself more sad.
Make yourself more sad. Read the book of Lamentations. Absolutely. Both at night and during the day. So, now following, all normal activities may be resumed, except for a few other odds and ends. So, now fascinating to all this, and I should have bought some, is the eating of almonds during this. So, turn to Jeremiah chapter 1 in your Bibles. Jeremiah chapter 1, because Jeremiah is the weeping prophet, right? He's the prophet where the events of the destruction of the first temple occurred under his ministry. So, Joni, how are we doing there?
She's singing her way to
You
Jeremiah.
can't be happy. Stop singing. Jeremiah 1, verses 11 and 12.
Jeremiah what, sorry?
Chapter 1, verses 11 and 12.
Listen,
Busy singing the song.
11 and 12.
Yep.
The word of the Lord came to me. What do you see, Jeremiah? I see the branch of an almond tree. I replied. The Lord said to me, you have seen correctly, for I am watching to see that my word is fulfilled.
This is a little play on words. So Jeremiah sees an almond tree, and God says, you have seen well, for I am watching. Now that word is shakid, which is the same root word as almonds, which is curious. So I see the branch of an almond tree, and God says, well, for I am the almond tree. So why? Here we go. The growth of the almond takes 21 days from the time it blossoms to the time it ripens, which corresponds to the 21 days between the 17th of Tammuz, when the walls of Jerusalem were breached, and the 9th of Av, when the Holy of Holies went up in flames. So from the blooming, when the walls were breached, to the burning, when the almond is ready. So almonds symbolize the destruction and the ruin of Jerusalem, the burning of the Holy of Holies. So every time you eat an almond, you're supposed to remember the Holy of Holies was burned. So it's a traditional food associated with this. And interesting, the details are, there are two types of almonds, bitter almonds and sweet almonds. Bitter almonds are sweet when they're small, but turn bitter as they grow larger. So if you got the small ones and ate at the end of 21 days, what does it taste like?
Not good.
It's bitter.
Yeah, heaven forbid we eat anything good in this culture.
That's right, yeah, in this era right now, right? Sweet almonds are bitter when they're small, but they become sweet when they're fully ripened. So we want to eat almonds that are bitter, to remind us. The term almonds probably refers to those that become sweet when fully ripened, while those that turn bitter when they mature have a different name. Thus, the nature of the almond and the effect of its 21-day ripening period is the transformation from bitter to that which is sweet. So you eat an almond because now you go, we eat the sweet ones. Because God takes that which is bitter and turns it to sweet. So here's the thing, everything has meaning. One of the fascinating things is that within Jewish culture, meaning is everywhere. Well, we might say, what does an orange mean? Nothing, right? But no, an orange would have meaning. What does an egg mean? We just have an egg. No, eggs have meaning. Everything is, because why? Because we are to teach our children as we walk, as we go. So the child says, Dad, why do we eat almonds today? He says, because this is the sweetness of God turning bitter to sweet. Dad, why do we not wear shoes? Because this is why we do this. So everything then becomes symbolic of, and that's one of the things I've tried to bring into church is that everything has meaning. Why do we have the old German Bible up front? Well, because it means our tradition, our history, our forefathers who came and spoke the language and came to this, in a sense, this empty place and built something in Happy Land of all places, right? So to try and communicate meaning through our activities, even downright through our food. So we can say to our kids, you know why you're eating this? Because it means this, right? Why do we eat turkey? Because it's good, right? Well, because at Thanksgiving when they were hungry, that was, that's a North American bird, right? You didn't eat turkey over in England. So that's the best I can come up with. So this is why this holiday is alluded to by the staff of the almond wood. The main theme of this period is transitioning from bitter to sweet. All right, now let's take a look at Harlan's question, part 3. What's the story behind the fall of Jerusalem, and why did the Romans do this, and how devastating it was? So what you have on page 8 is a picture of the temple. So I want you to notice on the outside edge, you'll see gates. If you look at the bottom, it says south gates, the Gentiles' courtyard. So the Gentiles, that's us, were allowed on the outside. They weren't allowed past the first wall. So if you look now, what would be to your right, you'll see the beautiful gate, the chamber of the Nazarites, this is where the lepers would go, the chamber of the wood they would store, and this is where women were allowed, what's called the women's courtyard. Then we get another gate, and now we're into where men are allowed with the priests. Then we get to the holy place where no one but the priest was allowed, and then we get to the Holy of Holies where only the priest was allowed, the high priest, once a year. So, Gentiles, women, men, priests, high priest. That's the set of barriers that are there. So let's take a look at what happened with the Romans. Oh, let's look at the temple first. I want to give you a tour before we look at the Romans.
In due course, the Romans appointed a man to rule Palestine on their behalf. His name was Herod, and he wasn't a Jew by birth. His family was Arab, from Idumea, though converted to Judaism. Herod had no particular love for the Jewish people nor their customs. What he did have was a lust for power and a desire to build the greatest monuments ever witnessed on Palestinian soil. Here, on the Mediterranean coast of Palestine, Herod built one of his greatest projects, a vast new harbor using the latest in Greco-Roman technology.
The purpose of this vast, ambitious enterprise was to give Judea a large port, which would enable Herod to profit from the booming global economy of the Roman Empire under Augustus. The Jewish historian Josephus tells us that Herod's engineers dropped huge blocks of stone straight into the bay, thus creating a vast breakwater which would shelter the Roman cargo ships.
In Samaria, the ancient capital of the northern kingdom, Herod built another Roman city from scratch. Perhaps in an attempt to atone for the massive influx of pagan influence, Herod then decided to expand the Second Temple in Jerusalem, the center of Jewish worship and cultic sacrifice. He created a vast platform on top of Temple Mount. The Western Wall in Jerusalem, which today is the holiest place of Judaism, is in fact one of those mammoth Herodian supporting walls. The huge temple complex was accessible through 2 floating staircases, each supported by arches. A small portion of one of these arches, known as Robinson's Arch, is still visible today. In the late 1960s, archaeologists also uncovered the monumental stairs that once led to the double gate on the south. Passing through the vast outer courtyard, worshippers first entered the court of women. This is as far as Jewish females were allowed to go. From here, the Nicanor Gate led to the court of the Israelites, where the temple stood, and where priests performed animal sacrifice on a large altar. The temple was still under construction in 30 AD, when Jesus visited the temple with his apostles, and it would not be completed until 30 years later, shortly before its destruction by Roman forces.
But we have to ask ourselves, how was Herod able to afford all this magnificent building activity? After all, Palestine had no gold or copper mines like North Africa, no silver or tin, no surplus of export quality wine or olive oil like Greece, or any of the rich timber of Lebanon. It had no capital resources to speak of, with one exception, the agricultural bounty of Lower Galilee.
Herod had discovered the wealth of Galilee while serving as its governor early in his career. Once Herod had been invested as the king of all Palestine, he knew where to get the money to feed his lust for glory. The farmers of Galilee.
Anyhow, so it gives you a little insight into the scale of the temple is this massive thing. So now, here's the question of why, what happened. I'm going to stop it here because I'm just going to keep going. So Herod builds this massive temple again that is not completed until 60 AD. And then along comes
Titus, the son of the Roman Emperor Vespasian, who was in command of the 4-month siege of Jerusalem, ordered his entire army to prepare to storm the temple at dawn. A total of 60,000 Roman legionaries and local auxiliaries were eager to deliver the final blow to the defiant but broken city. Within the walls, 500,000 starving Jews survived in diabolical conditions. Some were fanatical religious zealots, some were freebooting bandits, but most were innocent families with no escape from this magnificent death trap. Titus set about reducing Jerusalem with systematic efficiency and overwhelming force. The Jews fought for every inch with almost suicidal abandon. As the blistered and jagged hills sprouted forests of fly-blown crucified cadavers, the city within was tormented by a sense of impending doom, intransigent fanaticism, whimsical sadism, and searing hunger. Yet the rebels were still fighting. Although Titus was proving to be a gifted commander and a popular son of the new emperor, Vespasian's unproven dynasty depended on victory over the Jewish rebels. Jerusalem was, Josephus observed, like a wild beast gone mad, which for want of food fell now upon eating its own flesh. The Romans fought back and pushed the Jews into the temple itself. One legionary, seized with a divine fury, grabbed some burning materials and lit the curtains and frame of a golden window linked to the rooms around the actual temple. By morning, the fire had spread to the very heart of holiness. The Jews, seeing the flames licking the Holy of Holies and threatening to destroy it, made a great clamor and ran to prevent it. But it was too late. They barricaded themselves in the inner court, then watched in aghast silence. Thousands of civilians and rebels mustered on the steps of the altar, waiting to fight to the last, or just die hopelessly. All had their throats cut by the exhilarated Romans, until around the altar lay dead bodies heaped one upon another, with the blood running down the steps. 10,000 Jews died in the burning temple. The cracking of vast stones and wooden beams made a sound like thunder. Josephus watched the death of the temple. The roar of the flames streaming far and wide mingled with the groans of the falling victims, and owing to the height of the hill and the mass of the burning pile, one would have thought the whole city was ablaze. And then the din, nothing more deafening or appalling could be conceived than that. There were the war cries of the Roman legions sweeping onward, the howls of the rebels encircled by fire and swords, the rush of the people who, cut off above, fled panic-stricken, only to fall into the arms of the foe, and their shrieks as they met their fate. You would have thought the Temple Hill was boiling over from its base, being everywhere one mass of flame. Mount Moriah, where King David had placed the Ark of the Covenant, and where his son Solomon had built the first temple, was seething hot, full of fire on every part of it, while inside, dead bodies covered the floors. Now the rampaging Romans, seeing that the inner temple was destroyed, grabbed the gold and furniture, carrying out their swag before they set fire to the rest of the complex. Titus decided to eradicate Jerusalem, a decision which Josephus blamed on the rebels. The rebellion destroyed the city, and the Romans destroyed the rebellion. This final, desperate struggle would decide not only the fate of the city and her inhabitants, but also the future of Judaism and the small Jewish cult of Christianity, and even, looking forward across 6 centuries, the shape of Islam. The destruction was also decisive for Christianity. Jerusalem's small Christian community, led by Simon, Jesus' cousin, had escaped from the city before the Romans closed in. Even though there were many non-Jewish Christians living around the Roman world, these Jerusalemites had remained a Jewish sect praying at the temple. But now the temple had been destroyed, the Christians believed that the Jews had lost the favor of God. The followers of Jesus separated forever from the mother faith, claiming to be the rightful heirs to the Jewish heritage. Christians envisaged a new celestial Jerusalem, not a shattered Jewish city. In the 7th century AD, when Muhammad founded his new religion, the destruction of the temple proved for him too that God had withdrawn his blessing from Jews and bestowed it on Islam. It is ironic that the decision of Titus to destroy Jerusalem helped make the city the very template of holiness for the other 2 peoples of the book. From the very beginning, Jerusalem's sanctity did not just evolve, but was promoted by the decisions of a handful of men.
All right, get somebody to turn that light back on. So in answer to Harlan's question, the Jews had rebelled against the Romans, not wanting to, and there had been a series of rebellions that got hotter and hotter and hotter, or more aggressive and more aggressive. It finally came to the point by 70 AD that the Romans said, enough's enough. And they sent the emperor's son, a fellow by the name of Titus, to destroy Jerusalem. And as a consequence of the rebellion and the reaction, as you saw, the temple was burned to the ground. Jerusalem was flat. The walls were destroyed up, except for the Wailing Wall, which exists today. And then subsequently, the land where the temple was plowed under with salt and was made. The Jews escaped, and the ongoing revolution that we saw, where the half million were killed, or some debate that number, but a significant number. And the last holdout was a place called Masada, where they were on the mountaintop, and they thought they could hold out against the Romans, but the Romans, being what they were, built a ramp of earth and came up, and the remaining defenders slit their own throats and committed suicide. So that's what we're mourning. That's why the grief of this is so significant. When you think, when you actually think about the story, it is the Romans, in their own way. The picture you have there of this column, this is the Ark of Triumph that they gave to Titus for his destruction of Jerusalem. So you can still see this today if you go to Rome. But I wanted to show you one fascinating thing. If you look up here, you see this column here. There's just a bunch. It looks like gobbledygook, in this drawing. Turn the page over. That's actually what the top of the column looks like. The amount of detail is staggering in this. And I'm not, celebrating the destruction and fall of Jerusalem in any stretch, but this was just the nature of Roman engineering and design. and architecture and art that was there. So you can see this today, the Ark of Titus. So this, I want to wrap up with this quickly. This asks the question, and this is the holiday. The holiday sounds like a celebration of the holy day, that begs the question, is God good? You know, the destruction of Jerusalem, the fall of the Holocaust, all this stuff. And I just want to read you as we close. So in light of all this, is God good? This is from a guy named Menachem Mendel Schneerson, who is considered probably the most influential Jewish leader of the 20th century, the greatest rabbi. He's simply called the rabbi. He writes this, that all things in this world are truly good, as everything emanates from God, Hashem, who is the essence of goodness, and it is the nature of one who is good to act in a goodly manner. It therefore follows that even those things that to a human eye seem to be the antithesis of goodness are in fact truly good. Since the intent is ultimately for a good purpose, it's just that it's concealed from us. However, with time, the goodness and the loving kind intent will be revealed in its entirety. One should contemplate and utilize his faith in God during the times of what is called concealed goodness. So these aren't bad times. They're simply times of concealed goodness, when we don't see the goodness of God. One should ponder that in reality, events and occurrences that seem to be not at all good must surely be good and kindly, emanating as they do from God, who the essence of kindness. Proper contemplation and belief in God's total goodness and kindness builds the appropriate vessel to reveal and expose the goodness found within hardships. The same is so regarding this time period, the holiday we just looked at. On a revealed level, this is indeed a mournful time for the Jewish people because of the unfortunate events that befell us during these days, all things leading to our present bitter state of exile. However, in keeping with the same principle we are learning, the destruction of the temple and the subsequent exile from God, and since he is the essence of goodness, surely then with these events there is actual goodness. It is merely that for the time being, the goodness is totally obscured and concealed and will be revealed in the time to come. So the perspective is to, in the times of hardship, to realize that the goodness is concealed, because God can only do that which is good. And I want to wrap this up from Job. Actually, I looked at this with our seniors on Wednesday. This is the concealed goodness of God. Job is lamenting all his sorrows. And in Job 38 through 40, we won't read this, a long section, God asks Job a series of questions. And if we turn to Job, just we'll do this quickly, I won't take too much more time. We'll look at one or two of them. 1 in 38:12, he says, Donna, you want to read Job 38:12, and Shelley, could you read 39:13 through 18? Psalms, Proverbs, right in that neighborhood of all the wisdom books.
Psalms, Proverbs.
Okay, Job what?
38:12 for Donna, and for Shelley, 39:13 to 18. We're just going to read these two, and then I'll quickly wrap this up. 38:12.
Just before Proverbs.
Proverbs.
Oh,
Esther, Job, Psalms, Proverbs. Sorry, Psalms and Proverbs.
tell me again,
39:13 to 18.
and I'm 38.
Verse 12. All right, so God asked Job this question. Go ahead, Donna.
Have you ever in your life commanded the morning and caused the dawn to know its place?
And Job's answer is?
No.
No. God says, my power is too great. And then God asked Job a bunch of questions about rain and lightning and thunder, and then he says, okay, Job, I get it. You can't do that. Let's dial this down. Let's talk about animals. So, Shelley, 39:13 to 18.
13:18. The wings of the ostrich flap joyfully, but they cannot compare with the pinions and feathers they escort. She lays her eggs on the ground and lets them warm in the sand, unmindful that a foot may crush them, that some wild animal may trample them. She treats her young harshly as if they were not hers. She cares not that her labor was in vain, for God did not endow her with wisdom or give her a share of good sense. Yet when she spreads her feathers to run, she laughs at horse and rider. Do you give the horse his strength, or clothe his neck with flowing mane?
All right, he moves into horse. So he says, okay, Job, you don't get you don't get creation. How about ostriches? How do you do with and he does donkeys, And he says, you know, the ostrich is an idiot. It looks at it, but nothing can keep up with it when it runs. So God says to Job, in the face of your perceived suffering, never forget that I am in control. I control the dawn. I control the thunder. I control this. He says, as a matter of fact, I make donkeys and ostriches. I control nature itself. What comfort is that to Job? That the control is not revealed in the chaos. All Job can see is the chaos. But God says, behind the scenes are control. Job later on, where we would understand the control that Job sees, right? The whole process. And this is what this idea of the concealed goodness of God is that in the midst of chaos, fear, and horror, all the sorrows, there is the goodness and the control of God in the background, forming all things for the purpose of his will. That's why Romans 8 will pick up this theme, that all things work to good to those who are called according to his purposes. What is his purpose? That's the question. All right. The concealed goodness of God. Boy, that is very quickly moving through, is God good in the face of evil? It's a 5-minute answer to a profoundly philosophical question. But this holy day is a reflection on the evil and on the concealed goodness of God, knowing full well when the Messiah comes, all the good will be revealed. They're hoping for the Messiah to come to reveal the goodness of God. All right, any thoughts or questions? I know it's a little longer tonight. I'm sorry about that.
I'm really interested in Herod was a Arab.
Yes, he was. He was not Jewish.
No.
No, Herod was not Jewish. He was a bad man. Yeah, he was.
Sorry.
No, that's good. Yeah, no, he wasn't.